Here is a long, emotional, and smoothly paced story based on your title. It's written in plain paragraphs and crafted to fit the length and tone suitable for a 15-minute YouTube narration. Millionaire cowboy finds freezing nurse at train station, their love story made history. Snow slammed against the metal roof of the old railway platform like handfuls of gravel thrown by the wind. Midnight swallowed the sky, and the station lights flickered in a losing battle against the blizzard. Most travelers had either boarded hours ago or found shelter elsewhere. Yet there she was, huddled on a frozen bench, shivering under a thin coat, clutching a worn leather satchel as if it held her heartbeat. That was the moment Weston Hayes saw her, before he even knew that this woman, half frozen and alone, would change the course of his life and mark their love in the pages of history. Weston was a rancher by birth and a millionaire by grit. Known across Texas for saving failing ranches and turning dust into fortune, he wasn't a man often surprised. That night, he had come to the abandoned station to pick up a delayed shipment of medical supplies for a children's clinic he funded. But fate had loaded something else onto that icy platform. The woman didn't notice his footsteps crunching through the snow. She was curled so tightly her breath barely moved. Weston knelt in front of her and gently touched her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She startled, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Her lips were pale, trembling. I missed the last train," she stammered. "I didn't have anywhere to go." Her name was Clara Mitchell, an overworked nurse who had just finished a 32-hour shift in a city hospital 2 towns over. She'd been on her way to take a new job at a rural clinic but lost her ticket and luggage in the chaos of passengers scrambling through the storm. Her last dollars had gone to a cheap bus ride that left her at the wrong station. The world had forgotten her there. But Weston Hayes had not. Without hesitation, he removed his wool coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. When she tried to protest, he said only, "You'll freeze before pride keeps you warm." He guided her to his truck and cranked the heat, glancing at her every few seconds to ensure she stayed conscious. Her eyelids fluttered, and she whispered, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Weston replied quietly, "No one should be alone in weather like this." That's reason enough. He took her not to a hotel but to the guest room in his sprawling ranch house. Clara protested again, but he reminded her it was the only warm place nearby. Every inn was full or closed. His housekeeper brought blankets and hot broth, and Weston stayed outside her door until he heard her breathing slow into sleep. The next morning, the snowdrifts buried the fences like ghosts. Clara woke to the scent of coffee and the sound of horses in the distance. Weston sat at the kitchen table, hat off, hands wrapped around a mug. He didn't pry, didn't pity. He simply asked if she was warm and if she needed a ride to town. Over breakfast, Clara shared pieces of her life, how she'd grown up without much, how nursing became her purpose, how she spent her days saving others while quietly losing pieces of herself. Weston rarely talked about his wealth, but she sensed something in him too, a loneliness hidden behind responsibility and silence. When the storm delayed travel another day, Clara insisted on helping around the ranch as thanks. She bandaged a ranch hand's cut, fed the barn cats, and helped Weston check on the horses. He watched her move with quiet strength, and something in his chest shifted for the first time in years. Over the next week, news spread that the rural clinic she was heading to had closed due to funding losses. Clara felt foolish and lost, thinking she'd chased a purpose that vanished before she arrived. Weston listened and then did something she never expected. He offered to fund and rebuild the clinic if she would stay and help run it. She thought he was teasing. But by spring, construction began on the Hayes Community Health Center, and Clara oversaw every supply order, every paint color, every patient application. Weston visited the site daily, pretending to inspect progress but really finding excuses to talk to her. Their bond grew quietly, through shared coffee at sunrise, late-night planning sessions, and laughter over small mishaps. Locals whispered that the millionaire cowboy had finally softened, and that the nurse who arrived with frostbite and determination had thawed more than his heart. But their love was not without challenge. One evening, Clara overheard 2 investors criticize Weston for wasting money on charity just to impress some girl in scrubs. Furious and humiliated, she confronted him, accusing him of pity and image. Weston stepped closer, eyes steady. "I didn't build that clinic for you, Clara. I built it because of you. Because you reminded me that money means nothing if it can't keep good people from freezing or falling. Tears burned her cheeks, but his hands were warm when he held them. If you walk away, he said quietly, I'll still finish that clinic. But I'd rather build a life with you than just a building. 6 months later, on the day the clinic opened its doors, the townspeople gathered under a wide blue sky. Clara wore a simple dress and a stethoscope around her neck. Weston stood beside her in a crisp jacket, his hat held to his chest. The mayor spoke of generosity, courage, and second chances. Then, before the ribbon was cut, Weston turned to Clara in front of the crowd. No blizzard, no distance, no past is greater than the warmth you brought into my life, he said. I found you freezing once. I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel alone in the cold again. Will you marry me? The crowd gasped, then cheered. Clara covered her mouth, tears glistening, and whispered yes. They didn't care about diamonds or spectacle. The ring he gave her was modest, but the promise was unbreakable. Their wedding became part of town folklore. People said a nurse with nothing and a cowboy with everything taught the world that love is not found in comfort but in courage, and sometimes, on a frozen night at a forgotten station. Years later, children ran laughing through the clinic halls, parents told the story of how it began, and Clara and Weston sat on their porch watching sunsets bleed into the hills. Their love didn't just touch their lives, it made history in a place where most thought miracles only belonged in old stories. And it all started with a freezing night, an empty station, and one man who chose compassion over convenience. If you'd like image prompts, a title card, or episode formatting based on this story, just let me know.